The 2025 Bahrain Grand Prix, absolute cinema. I mean, the race was so interesting, the cameraman forgot to show Piastri crossing the line. But don't you guys seriously think that we should have two stoppers every race so that the race gets more interesting? I mean, if you're Red Bull, then probably not because their pit stops were absolute shit and it looked like they were run by Kick Sauber. On the other hand, Kick Sauber's pit stops were really quick, and it's funny because the guy who was in charge of all of this in Red Bull is now in Kick Sauber. And it was honestly a disaster class from them. I'm surprised that Verstappen was so calm on the radio, he was so calm in the post-race interviews, and that makes me think that there's something brewing behind the scenes because there is some gossip after the Bahrain Grand Prix. So what happened was that Red Bull had an emergency meeting immediately after the race considering their disaster class, and on top of that, Max Verstappen's manager was seen getting a bit irritated with Helmut Marko. Now this is all that's been reported and a lot of rumors are in the air, but probably Max would start looking elsewhere, but for 2026, there is no place to go, except if you are Aston Martin.
Good afternoon.
Red Bull's car is a shocking spectrum because how do you go from winning a race last week to P6 and P7 this week? Max didn't qualify well, he had issues with the brakes, and even in the race, he was just not making any progress. And at one point, you saw Max Verstappen running P20 in the race. I don't know the last time when this has happened, but eventually he made his way through, got a P6 with that last lap move on Gasly, and it was just damage limitation from his end. And honestly, the drivers are the last problem of Red Bull at this point because even Yuki was a lot more closer to Max this weekend than he was in Japan. He got his first set of points for Red Bull, so the bank account is open now for him with Red Bull Racing. And this car has such a narrow window to work. If you get it right, it might be the second or the third fastest car, and if you don't, it might be fourth or even the fifth fastest car. These all shenanigans have honestly dropped Max from P2 to P3 in the Drivers' Championship, and if they don't improve, I don't see this getting any better. Pit stops used to be one of the best things that Red Bull used to do, and they used to have that award all the time, but seriously, the lights weren't working and they were a mess. Honestly, so many things were failing in Bahrain. I don't know why everything just decided to give up at one go, because that's what happened with Russell. You know, we always joke about Russell not doing anything, getting a P3. He's just always there to take an advantage, but this time he did everything and managed a very good P2. I mean, he even showed off his body in the cool down room to make sure that the FIA doesn't give him a penalty. That worked. But what was the issue with George Russell in general? So basically what happened was that his electronics were malfunctioning in the car. So Russell actually couldn't see anything on the steering wheel. He was just using a backup button for the radio, and that accidentally activated the DRS for a very short amount of time. So he got a little bit of an advantage, but then he realized that this has happened. So he lifted off and gave off that advantage. He slowed down a little bit just so that if FIA picks this up, he doesn't get a penalty. So he gained a little bit of an advantage. He let go of that advantage. Net even. So that's why he didn't get a penalty. And the electronics of his car in general were failing. So because of that, even the cars behind him were affected because Russell's position, you could see, was doing a bungee jumping in the timing tower. So the cars behind him could also not figure out whether they are in the DRS or not. And that's why even Norris was very cautious of using DRS behind Russell. And all in all, with so many issues, he had such a great drive. And I'm happy that people are now finally realizing how good Russell is. He's been completely consistent from the start of this season. He's kept himself in the championship fight. And I do feel that Mercedes right now is the second best car. I mean, he pulled off more than 20 laps on the soft tires at the end. Absolute respect. He cooked with his drive, and I think Mercedes overcooked with Kimi's strategy because he was on a horrible strategy. We saw him making such nice moves on Verstappen, on Sainz. He was dive bombing, he was overtaking really well, and then suddenly Mercedes comes up with this brain dead strategy where he was put from soft tires to medium tires, then on soft tires again by lap 28, and there is still half a race to go, and then we get an untimely safety car, and because of that he goes on another set of soft tires, and from what was a very good run, he eventually fell out of points. But these rookies are performing damn good well, and no, I'm not gonna make a Fernando Alonso joke. In general, Kimi Antonelli performed so well. Then we had Ollie Bearman, who started P20. Did you look at his start? From P20 to P15, he made that like in 1 or 2 turns. It was absolutely insane. And then on top of that, he drove a really nice race. He got a little bit lucky with the safety car timing, but starting P20 to P10, that's a massive achievement from him, and the rookies are damn talented, bro. And Haas in general is having such a great run. Once again, they got double points. Ocon had an incident in qualifying. He didn't qualify very well, but still he ended up being in points. He also ran a really nice race. The strategy was on point, and a lot of these things that these teams used to get wrong. For example, Haas used to do a lot of strategy blunders as well. Their car was nowhere. They're fixing a lot of things, and that's why I had predicted Haas P5 for my Constructors' Championship. And so far, I think that is going well. I think Haas and Williams are going to be fighting for that P5 spot. Williams sadly didn't have a great weekend. Sainz was on it in the qualifying, and finally we saw that Carlos Sainz that we know that we saw in the Bahrain preseason testing as well. But sadly, luck is not in his favor. In last race, he had to pay a 20,000 euro fine because he was not feeling well. He was in the washroom and the national anthem was going on. And now with that unfortunate incident with Yuki, which was more or less a racing incident, he had a hole in his side pod and eventually had to retire the car. I think he needs to put this evil eye sticker in the car because he seriously cannot catch a break, and that bad luck has gone to Albon as well, because what happened in qualifying was that Albon did not make it to Q2, but later on FIA realized that Nico Hülkenberg's lap time was supposed to be deleted. So they deleted it by the time they reached Q3. So Albon was already out, whereas he was supposed to be in Q2. He maybe could have improved and made it to Q3. Absolute disaster class from the FIA in quali, and that kind of hampered his race as well. And Nico Hülkenberg actually got disqualified after the race too because he had too much plank wear, something that we saw with Lewis in China. I'll come to Ferrari in a while, but the most shocking thing for me throughout this race weekend was Alpine's pace. It came out of nowhere. Gasly qualified P5, then later on with the Mercedes penalty, he was starting P4, and Jack Doohan almost made it to Q3. So where has this sudden Alpine pace come from? So I was reading up on this a bit, and apparently Alpine is the only one that uses a Renault engine, and their engine has a big deficit compared to Honda, Ferrari and Mercedes. So what they used to do is that they used to do some setup changes and try to go very aggressive in setting up the car to make up that deficit somewhere. So that's why they were not performing on the optimal level. This weekend they decided, Flavio decided that nothing doing like that, just set up the car as normal and let's see where we go, and somehow it paid them off well. So this is a nice direction that they've unlocked, and we'll see what they can do in the next weekend. Very positive vibes from the team right now, and so far Doohan's seat is also safe. Apparently he has been given time until summer break to see what he can do. I hope he doesn't try those experiments that he uses in the simulator to see if it works on the real track. I'm going to jump to Ferrari now because a lot of Ferrari fans are like, bro, tell us what's happening with the car. Are the upgrades working? Why did Lewis struggle so much in quali? So yeah, let me tell you that the upgrades on Ferrari have given them positive results. So there are two things with the car. The car has balance issues which they figured out in pre-season testing, and the upgrades were planned before that. So the upgrade is working as it is intended to, but the original balance issues are still remaining, and they still have to sort it out by unlocking the setups and by, testing the car more and more around the track, and they are on an upward trajectory. Bahrain was supposed to be a track where this car was ideally supposed to struggle, but somehow they did not lack that much in comparison to the competitors. So that's a positive sign for them, and so far, yes, the upgrades are working. If I talk about Hamilton, so he had this very nice post-race interview, which I'm sure a lot of you guys would have missed, where he was talking about what's exactly going on and how is he adapting to the car. So he was basically saying that he's still trying to adapt to the Ferrari car. He's been used to the Mercedes car for 12 years and a lot of things were different there. He was mentioning something about engine braking, how it's a lot more prominent here, and he didn't bother that much with it with the Mercedes car. They use a different set of brakes in the Ferrari car in comparison to Mercedes. So they also respond differently. The engine also responds differently. So he was saying that he is realizing a lot of these things and he's still going to take time to adapt to all of this, but he's slowly trying to do that. He specifically spoke about his middle stint on the medium tires, which we saw. That was the Lewis Hamilton we know, constantly putting out fastest laps after fastest laps, overtaking cars, closing the gaps like it's nobody's business. So that's where he is chasing, and he said that he understood a lot more about the car. So it was a very good interview which was explaining everything that's going on with him right now. So I do expect him to still take a little bit of time to get used to the Ferrari car, especially in quali. In race he's doing fine, but qualifying is something where he has been struggling lately, so we have to see if that's with respect to age or it's with respect to getting on top of this new car. But Leclerc has been doing great. He qualified P3, which was absolutely amazing. He went on to P2 because of Russell's penalty. Ferrari started off with the medium tires, which was a good strategy honestly. Medium, soft, they were probably going to do that, but sadly the safety safety car came a bit too early. So because of that, with 23, 24 laps remaining, they had to go on the hard tire. Because if they went on the soft tire and if they would have killed the tires in 12 to 15 laps, then we would have made memes on Ferrari once again. But Ferrari right now could swing between third and fourth fastest. Their fight right now is with Mercedes and Red Bull and not with McLaren, who are on a planet of their own, because what a performance from them, especially Oscar Piastri. Didn't set a foot wrong, very strong at the track, got pole, maintained the lead of the race, won the race by a good enough margin, and the TV director somehow forgot to show him when he was crossing the finish line. It was a very Oscar Piastri-esque direction, because Piastri is also, when he wins a race, yeah, okay, I won a race. When he doesn't perform well, he's like, okay, cool. Has the same expression throughout. He's the new Iceman, the new Kimi Raikkonen. But I'm happy for him, man. He's P2 in the Drivers' Championship now, very close to Norris. So this in-team battle is something I'm excited to see. Norris was somehow just not there at this weekend. He messed up the quali big time, and even after the quali, he was so depressed. You have to see his post-quali interview to understand how beat up he was and he was extremely hard on himself. I find him very similar to Lewis in this aspect. When they are not having a good day, they are super hard on themselves publicly, and that just gives people more ammo to make memes on them, make fun about them. But yeah. He did a good recovery drive though, especially in the start from P6 to P3 by one turn. That was amazing, especially how Norris is memed about his start. So that was a good one. But later on, there were a couple of things here or there. I mean, he did not align the car properly at the race start. Who does that? He got 5 seconds of penalty, and Max was like looking at him when he was in his grid box and immediately reported Lando starting ahead. Nothing misses out Verstappen's eye. But yeah, a couple of silly mistakes from Lando, which if he wouldn't have done, he would have come to P2 as well, and he would have gotten a bit more in the championship lead. But he has been saying on record that there is something with this new car which is different from the 2024 car, and that's not gelling well with his driving style so far. So if he's not comfortable in the car and still producing these results, maybe eventually once he's in the zone with his car, he would perform even better. But who are you going to go with, Oscar or Lando for the Drivers' Championship? Actually, honestly, right now, I see realistically 4 drivers competing for the championship. That's the 2 McLaren boys, Max and Russell. Ferrari, have to see where they are with respect to the updates, but I mean, Russell is just right there by not doing anything. 1 or 2 good upgrades from Mercedes closing the gap, and he's just there. He could potentially win the title. But I honestly had fun watching the Bahrain Grand Prix after the Japanese Grand Prix, which was a complete snooze fest. The Bahrain Grand Prix was fun, and we actually do a live watch along. If you're new to the channel, you don't know, but while the race is going on, we discuss it live. We've done a lot of watch alongs this season, and we're going to do it for pretty much every single race. So join next time and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. But this was pretty much your Bahrain Grand Prix review. The driver of the day was Lewis Hamilton, which I don't agree with completely. I mean, he drove amazingly well, but that is kind of expected from him. He's a 7-time world champion. So yeah, I mean, I like Lewis Hamilton, but driver of the day could have gone to Kimi Antonelli or maybe to Ollie Bearman, because they did some phenomenal performances, or it could go to George as well. And lately this year, they've been very random with driver of the day, because it was Kimi in one of the races where he didn't really do anything. Then it was Yuki last time when once again he didn't really do anything. Yeah, so who was your driver of the day? You guys let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'll catch up with you guys after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. What more would you like to see in the race reviews? If we could switch up the format a bit, I would love to know your opinions, and I'm all ears for that. Make sure that you follow me on Instagram at your F1 guy. A lot more content is coming there, and I'll catch up with you guys next week.